We begin this morning with the Department of Justice going full steam ahead in Donald Trump's relentless retribution campaign, now potentially on the verge of bringing charges against a third person on Trump's enemies list. MSNBC reports that criminal charges against former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton could come as soon as next week. A grand jury in Maryland has been hearing evidence for several weeks related to claims that Bolton improperly kept classified national security information in his Maryland home. But the pace of the case has recently sped up, according to two people familiar with the case. This news comes in the same week that New York Attorney General Letitia James has been indicted and former FBI Director James Comey was arraigned. MSNBC has learned that James's case, like Comey's, was brought before a grand jury solely by Trump's former personal lawyer turned interim U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan against the wishes of prosecutors in the Eastern District of Virginia. Halligan, again, was also the sole signatory of the indictment. And all of this comes just weeks after Trump called on his Attorney General, Pam Bondi, through a social media post to go after his perceived enemies that, quote, "We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times, exclamation point, over nothing, all caps. Justice must be served now." And as The Atlantic's Quinta Jurecic points out, at this point in the Trump era, insisting that none of this is normal has become so routine it feels like a cliche. But, well, none of this is normal. Trump's effort to turn the Justice Department into his personal legal weapon shatters norms of law enforcement independence, inoculated in the decades since Watergate, and perhaps outstrips any previous abuses of the department at any other point in American history. The ability of law enforcement to prosecute genuine wrongdoing rather than wielding the law as a tool of the leader's whims is central to a life in liberal democracy. Joining us now is former CIA Director John Brennan. He's also an MSNBC senior national security and intelligence analyst, and Liz Oyer, former DOJ pardon attorney and federal public defender. Guys, big news week, Friday news dump. Liz, I want to ask you first. What's your take on
exactly why?
I'm sorry.
How?
I'm still.
It's terrible here.
I mean, it's exactly what Quinta wrote, that what is so unprecedented is now just routine. What is the damage that Lindsay Halligan is doing to the system, and why do you think she's doing this? I mean, is this singularly to keep her job and to appease the president?
She's doing a tremendous amount of damage, but it's not really her that's driving it. She's being used as a pawn by Donald Trump, who has made it clear from day one of this administration that his goal is to use the Justice Department as a tool to exact revenge on his enemies. He is also using it as a way to reward people who are loyal to him by dismissing prosecutions, et cetera. But what he's focused on right now is the revenge piece of it, and that means digging up information about his enemies that allows him to persuade someone to bring criminal charges against him. It's actually not that easy because he has gone through a series of career experienced prosecutors who refused to bring these charges because they found them not supported by facts, not supported by law, not consistent with the standards of justice we have in this country. But he pushed a lot of people out of the way. He finally found someone who really has no business being a federal prosecutor. She's got no experience prosecuting cases. She is an insurance lawyer by training, but she swooped into this position, and now she's seeking indictments as part of his revenge tour against his enemies.
Is there a legal problem if it comes out either through media reporting or Trump himself posting on Truth Social that Trump is actively working with Lindsay Halligan on and directing her in private conversations to pursue these prosecutions?
Well, there's a legal theory called vindictive prosecution and a related theory called selective prosecution. And those arguments will be made by lawyers for Letitia James and James Comey, arguing that these prosecutions are not consistent with due process principles of our Constitution because they are driven by revenge demands of the president. The law in that area is challenging, and they're the types of claims that aren't usually successful in court.
But if you have a tweet from the president directing the DOJ to do the bidding and naming the people.
What we're seeing here is really, it's never happened before.
Yeah.
We've never had a situation like this before. So it'll be interesting to see how the law shapes up. And certainly the president's tweets and public statements will be used as evidence in defense of these individuals who are being charged in this manner.
Well, Director Brennan, speaking of the revenge tour and the people who the president has targeted either by name or in social media, if we could put that chart back up, you may recognize one of the people in that list. You are there. You are among the people. We have now seen the president go after James Comey, go after Attorney General Letitia James. How concerned are you, or are you expecting to be the next one to be indicted?
Well, as Liz said, this is a retribution campaign on the part of Donald Trump personally, and he's going after those critics that he has targeted for punishment.
Well, what did you do? Why are you on that list? Why is he so irked at you?
I think I have gotten under his skin over the last number of years because I have been outspoken as far as criticizing his abuses of power. And I think he has always been annoyed at me for being part of the effort to try to expose Russian interference in the 2016 election because of the intelligence community assessment that was done at the time, where we were focused on the Russian interference. We weren't addressing the issue of any type of collusion or cooperation on the part of Trump campaign officials. But in addition to punishing people, he's really trying to intimidate individuals into silence. He's trying to make sure that any critics that are out there realize that they could, in fact, be vulnerable to some type of prosecution under these contrived charges, whatever. And Liz and I were talking before. You know, this is just part of a real mean-spiritedness on the part of this administration, trying to punish and destroy the reputations of individuals. But also, look what he's doing to undocumented workers, tearing families apart, firing federal employees, slashing Medicaid benefits. And there's such a nastiness to this administration that really is, in my mind, very un-American. And so I know my photo is up there and my name is one of the ones that is out, but I really do believe it's an obligation on my part, as well as other Americans, to speak out and speak up when they see wrongdoing, when they see abuses of power. And, you know, this is not a normal time. This is a very abnormal time, but we cannot normalize it by just turning a blind eye to it.
Liz, I want to actually go back to the Letitia James of it all, because you mentioned the facts of the case. I'm going to look at the facts that we have. We have the email provided to Pam Bondi in April from James's lawyer, and then there's between Letitia James and the mortgage loan broker. On August 2nd, 2023, she writes, "This property will not, in caps, be my primary residence. It will be Shamice's primary residence. That is her niece." The mortgage loan broker writes back on August 3rd, "Good morning, Letitia. Section 4 indicates that the property will be occupied as a primary residence for Shamice. The loan is originated as a primary residence. Declaration is marked as a non-occupying borrower. The file is set up correctly and rate us locked as primary residence." For the DOJ to get an actual conviction here, which maybe they're not even interested in, right? Maybe Donald Trump is just interested in the show of it all, right? Embarrassing Letitia James, pulling her through this, making her get a lawyer. It feels like they would have to prove that she deceived, actively, knowingly deceived someone. Is that what they have to prove here, or is there another standard in this case?
Well, they do have to prove that she had the intent to deceive in this mortgage loan application. One of the confusing aspects of this is there are a couple of different properties at issue, and the one that you're reading about, I believe, is not the one that they ended up charging in the indictment, because I think her lawyers actually persuaded the prosecution that they would not be able to prove charges on that property. So they continue to dig and dig and dig. There is this guy behind the scenes who really has a very sinister role in this administration. His name is Bill Pulte. He is the director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency. And through that job, he has access to a tremendous amount of non-public information about the mortgages of all Americans. And he has been rifling through that information, looking for dirt on Letitia James. So it looks like they've settled on another property that they think that they can maintain some charges on, but it's not clear that they can. The requirements for classification of mortgages are very legally complicated complicated, and there is known lack of clarity in the standards that exist for claiming these different types of mortgages. So it's going to be difficult to prove that Letitia James had the level of knowledge and understanding that she actually intentionally deceived anyone on this mortgage loan application that's charged in the indictment.
Yeah.
If, on that note, someone in the government using private information and weaponizing that against you, I mean, is that the argument? What is the argument if you are talking to people who are not necessarily watching our show and who are not that worried about what Pam Bondi and Donald Trump are doing to prosecutorial power in the United States? What would you tell them to convey to them that this is something that they should care about and should be worried about?
Well, I think it makes everybody vulnerable because it seems as though this administration and Department of Justice and individuals like Bill Pulte are out there trolling information, publicly available information, as well as things that are very sensitive and confidential to the U.S. government, to see whether or not they can find anything that would provide the basis for making such an allegation. Again, even if the allegation is not going to be held up by a court or even by a grand jury, whatever, getting it out there is part of their effort to try to, again, disparage individuals and to ruin people's sort of reputations, and also to, have individuals run up costs for lawyers and to defend themselves. So again, the fact that everybody, I think, is vulnerable, not just the past critics, future critics, but also individuals that might just get on the wrong side of somebody within the administration. They decide to do this. And Donald Trump may not even be the focus of any type of criticism, but people like Pulte may decide to go after somebody who wronged them in the past or who they perceive to have wronged them in the past.
And there's the offensive aspect of this, but there's also the defensive, where the DOJ is not going after anyone associated with Donald Trump for anything that they're currently doing. When you look at the messages, the Signalgate situation in the old days, and I don't know if we have a ton of time, but in the old days, there would be at least a peek into why Mike Walls, may have violated, if he had violated something there. Also, so there's a defensive, but also the offensive.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of a system